Hello, boys. Welcome back to the Trough, and this week we are going back to DMR Publishing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have returned.
Help! Somebody!
I just wanted to say this intro goes on for a bit, so if you want to skip ahead to when I start getting into the books, I have a timestamp down below. I have a timestamp for each book that I'm talking about if you just want to go for one or the other or whatever. Also, I'm introducing some gameplay footage into this video. I thought it might be a little more interesting to have that in the background. Not that I'm doing anything crazy, but that might be a little more entertaining than like the static images, so I thought I'd play around with it a little bit. The footage is from a game called Sons of the Forest. I'm probably going to have a video on that, like an overview, out sometime in January. Anyways, that's it. Keeping on with the tradition of cooking and baking and all that, I tried to make like cheese sticks. I was going to make like cheese sticks like that. It did not work out super well. I did not use the proper amount of dough. I have to work on that. So I just stretched things too far. But the taste was not bad. The taste was not bad, but I'm going to work on this recipe. These kind of cheese logs. They're kind of like cheese boats almost. Since we're going to the Trough for content, we have to go to the Trough for food as well. That's how this works. On with the video. So, previously, I have talked about DMR on this channel. I've checked out 4 of their books before. Samhain Sorceries. There's a great one in there by Harry Piper. It's about these warriors that go into a mythological Welsh hell, and they are trying to bring their lord back from the dead. It is so good. It is incredible. A lot of good ones in there. The Great Die Slow by Harry Piper. And these are really good. They're really creepy and dark. Like some really, excellent ones. And there was Warlords, Warlocks, and Witches. And in here, some of my favorites were Razor Spike Spindle by Mark Taverna, The Thing in the Field by Harry Piper, Honor Served. This is one about like Vikings in Constantinople. And I also checked out a free ebook that they have, which is Infernal Bargains and Other Stories. And that one is very good. It's free. You just have to go to their website. I have a link to it down below. You go there, sign up with an email, you get a free ebook. Definitely worth it. And my favorite from that, there's plenty of good ones in there, but my favorite from that is Black Genesis by Mark Taverna. If you have 20 minutes, please, God, and you like sword and sorcery stuff and like dark fantasy stuff, it is so worth your time. It's great. Oh, it's so good. I don't really want to talk about it to spoil it, but it's free. If you got 20 minutes, check it out. And if you do check it out, let me know, because I think it's wonderful. But I've checked out 4 books from them in the past, really liked them, and this week I have 3 more to talk about. We have Vran, the Chaos Warped. This is by DMR Ritzlin, and this is about a guy. It's kind of like Conan-esque. I don't have like a better term to describe it, but that's the feeling I got from it. And Vran is a warrior, and he's tracking down this wizard he wants to kill because he's a very evil dude, and he's going through these different kind of worlds and portals, and he's pursuing him. I like that. We have the Eye of Sounnu or Sonaru, whatever. This is by Schuler Hernström, and this is an anthology, but it's just from Schuler, so it's just stories from him, but it's a little anthology. I like these. These felt, I guess, maybe like older fantasy kind of sci-fi stuff, just kind of like the feel from it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it sort of feels like kind of, I don't know. I'll get into it when I'm talking about the stories, but it just felt like a bit older, but like good. I liked them. Plenty of good ones in there. And last, there's Death Dealers and Diabolists, and this is an anthology just with several writers, and excellent. This has one of my favorite stories that I've read from DMR so far. Very good. I recommend all 3 of these. You know, I have the link to where you can buy them below. I've read 7 books from these guys so far, and they're a publisher where I think I'll go back to them in a few months, read a few more books, do a video, and then like wait a few months and then go back. That's what I've done so far, and I like it. And I have some videos of like the other books that I reviewed, so if you do check those out, then you can watch those videos. Definitely worth your time. That's how I feel. And we're just going to go right in. So I'm going to have spoilers and everything for these books. I'm going to start with Death Dealers and Diabolists. So this one, it's an anthology, like I said, a bunch of different authors. The first book is called, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's QA, the Librarian, but there's a little apostrophe in between the Q and A. This is by Buzz Dixon. And apparently this is like a bigger name writer. He has like a kind of like long list of projects he's been a part of and he's done. I didn't really recognize a lot of them, but it seemed impressive. But very good story. But this is like what I said. This is one of the best I've read from DMR. Basically, there's this library where dark magic is performed, and rich like warlords and kings and people like that, they come from all over the world, and they spend an incredible amount of money for these librarians to summon demons and for them to perform sacrifices for the demons for like whatever dark desires they have, like for more power, conquest, that type of thing. And Kia is a warrior. She is a woman. She's kind of like Brienne of Tarth, where like she's a female warrior. She's like a slaver, but it doesn't feel bad. It feels like reasonable, like how she's described, where she is like very much an oddity. And yeah, it felt good. Like it definitely worked for the story. But she gets hired by this library to be like to keep the slaves under control, the people that they're going to sacrifice for these demon rituals. People pay huge prices to contact demons for favors, and none of it phases her. Like she watches children get killed and sacrificed, and she's standing right there, doesn't phase her at all, does not care, because she's had like a pretty awful life of her own. But she starts to soften a little bit after like a long period of time, but not enough to like rebel, not enough to like do anything. But this all changes when someone from her past shows up, and this is a woman who was with like a group. They're kind of like Arabic people, like Arabic slavers, right? And this person has arrived, and she wants her 3 sons to become like god kings of the earth. And the sacrifices that the demon they contact demands to like for this to come true, it's like it amounts to basically genocide. Like not like dozens of people, because so far it's been like you sacrifice like 20 people to me or 5 people or whatever, and I'll do your little task, right? I'll kill your rival so you can become king, whatever, or like a dozen people. But this is like thousands and thousands and thousands, and just like on a schedule, right? So it very, very rapidly it amounts to like genocide. And this is too much for her, and she's also reflecting about her past, of her being taken as a slave and abused in all of her life, and she can't put up with it. This is just up too far, so she rebels, and the demon who like, it's kind of great, where like they're performing their rituals in like this little room, and they have their little like protection circle around it, but if anything happened to that little circle, or if they stepped outside of it, that demon would annihilate them. And she screws up the circle, and now the demon is free, and it's like it's becoming massive, and it's destroying the library and killing everybody, and it's insane. But by the end of it, the next morning, she ends up helping to free some slaves, and there's one librarian left, and he has all the knowledge in his mind necessary to rebuild the library, cuts his head off, and that's the end of the story. I loved it. It's great. It's like 57 pages. This is a wonderful, wonderful opening story for this. I think it's so good. This library thing was excellent. So that's your opening story, and I think incredible, like so good. Next one, we have Man with the Evil Eye. This is a story set in Constantinople. It's about 3 friends who are warriors, and they stop a woman from being killed by some bandits because she's witnessed this murder. And there's some things that are mentioned, blues and greens, and I had to look this up. Apparently the blues and greens represent like different like chariot racing factions, like people that support different like chariot races, but it also spilled into other like debates and conflicts, and it got like really violent between the 2 groups. I don't know, that's weird, but the author mentions it, and they capture one of these dudes and tell him, take us back to your boss, because she witnessed this really important murder go down. And his boss is Theodore Hamadius, and he's behind it. And apparently he's this like bad dude in Constantinople, right? And at the house, when they get there, there's this satyr guardsman in the garden, and they're told that there's worse to come within the house. Anyways, they keep going, and Theodore is this fat guy with an eye patch over his left eye, and it can paralyze people. They try to take down Theodore. It doesn't work. He uses his magic eye. They're taken to a horse with carnivore fangs. Apparently, this is a mare of Diomedes, and I guess this is something from Greek mythology because there's also a satyr. I initially thought that Theodore was going to be like a cyclops, if that was going to be something like he's also a mythological creature, but he's not. They end up overpowering them, and Theodore gets eaten by his own horse, and they scamper off into the night. I like this one. I didn't really know about this blue-green thing in Constantinople. That's interesting. I kind of want to learn more about it, and I always like Greek mythology, so this was nice. The Vault of Gagar Varacus. So we have Kral Mazan, who's a thief, and he's playing dice versus Gygar, right? And Gygar is his cheater. We have this nice line on page 88. Gygar bent down and whispered into Kral's ear. That wasn't very polite. Accuse me, Gygar Varacus, of cheating? No. I do not cheat. I win. I like it. It's very good. And so basically, he gets the shit kicked out of him. He loses money. He vows revenge. And he's just like in an alleyway. And there's this woman, beautiful woman, called Vran. And she asks him to steal this ring that her father owned. But then Gygar stole it. So he goes into Gygar's manor. But there's like this magical illusion thing where it's like you're just walking down this hallway. And you're not really making any progress type of a deal. But he's able to overcome it and finds out that the woman, Vran, was actually just using him as a distraction. So he says, get the fuck out of here before I kill you. He ends up breaking into the vault, right? So he breaks into the vault, and there's actually like some cursed treasure, and there's this monster of tentacles that starts coming out of a ruby. But Vran is not completely bad, even though she set him up to be a distraction, because she tosses him a sword, and he's able to defeat the monster and get out of there, but she's not like waiting for him either. And that's the end of that one. Pretty solid. Lord of the Wood. This is kind of about like Finnish mythology. I don't know too much about Finnish mythology, but they have like people placing bear skulls in trees. I don't know if that's something that like Europeans used to do. It's very interesting. Like it sounds very cool. But basically we have this man who's a hunter. He's going after some Viking raiders for revenge after his wife has been killed and presumably his daughter. He ends up catching up to them, and it turns out that his daughter is still alive, and so he's still been captured though, but then like this Finnish bear monster comes out of the woods and just slaughters everyone and lets them go. So yeah, it's a nice story where it's like it's not totally like dark because he's able to bring his daughter home. Like that was kind of interesting. I don't really know anything about Finnish mythology. Ranarex, Son of the Tiger. So this is by Mark Taverna, one of the guys I really love with DMR. And this one is about Hakun, who's the son of the chief, and they are in a land that is very cold. It's kind of like an Ice Age-esque setting, and they are the Tiger Clan, and they fight like the Wolf Clan and these other clans. And their shaman has just predicted that their savior, the one who will like unite all the clans and lead them south into like good warm lands, is going to come by today. Hakun doesn't really like this because he's supposed to be next in line after his father, and he thinks that he can trick everyone into thinking that he's Ranarex by going outside, because like Ranarex is supposed to show up like without clothes, and people will just know him for like who he is. But it turns out he runs into the real savior, and Ranarex is this boy, and he thinks he's like, oh, just get the fuck out of here, kid. But the boy can turn into this massive tiger monster, and it just slaughters him. And the last thing he hears is people shouting, Ranarex, our savior, has arrived from city walls. So yeah, I like that one. Intrigue in the Unassailable City. So this is about a soldier coming home after a decade, and their city is like this weird kind of coastal city. It's like right on the edge of like a cliff, like with the ocean right there, and like people live in caves all around it. He's not looking for trouble. He's He wants to put all of his soldiering behind him, but that's not going to happen. There's this guy he knew from the war, and he ends up poisoning him and forcing him to take this assassination job. He ends up not going through with it because the woman he was in love with is like involved with this guy now, and he ends up turning on the people that poisoned him, and there's all that, and like he's able to beat everyone. And it turns out her husband, or well, not husband, I guess fiance, is kind of a piece of shit. So they're not together anymore. And at the end, he's together with his love interest. So that was nice. 3 Coins of Doom. This was all right. This was kind of interesting. Basically, there's this bar fight going on, and we have this pirate guy. He's our leader. He's this captain. And it just seems like a normal bar fight, but there's this shadowy figure that appears, and he summons 3 beings. When blood is spilled, he has 3 coins with them. The coins are gold, silver, and copper. And when blood is spilled on them, 3 figures appear, and these figures have like a golden mask, a silver mask, a copper mask, right? And apparently these guys are agents of a dark traveler. I don't know if this is supposed to be something from like a bigger work or something that could be like serialized, but apparently our pirate captain, he has some like bad blood with these cultists. And they're able to like fight him off and defeat the man in the black mask who controls the coin beings. I guess that's the way to describe them. But at the end, when they're leaving in their ship, there's a man in an ivory mask, and he has 3 coins as well. So I don't know. Like I think I'd be interested in reading more about this. I really like the coins and just how these guys are summoned. I thought that was interesting. The Age of Crows. This is about a man called Duryodhan. He is a immortal warrior. Like his soul is immortal. Like he gets reincarnated. Does that make sense? Like immortal soul, and like he remembers his previous lives as well. Okay. He is like with a group of, I guess, basically angels. And they serve a god, a being called Lord Atman, right? So God is with him, and he's kind of witnessing these like Timkut Empire, and these used to be like decent people, but now they're pretty evil, decadent, and just perverse people. And he's just very unhappy. He's very unhappy. He doesn't really know what to do with his life. And he also has like Lord Atman with him, like looking over him, but Lord Atman doesn't engage with him. He doesn't speak with him. He goes and he meets Vildar, who is another angel like him, right? And they figure out that there's this plot going on with something called like flies, and these are like, they're like actual flies, but they're like devastating like weapons of destruction. And there's some more like evil shit going on in the background. And they think maybe the Timkut Emperor or someone close to him is actually like some dark sorcerer. One thing I will say for this one, I think that there is like a fine line for short stories where there's enough world building where it's like, ooh, that's interesting, I would read more. But then there's too much world building placed in this story. An example I have is at the bottom of 191. This is when he's with his friend Vildur, and they're talking about another angel, Nakula, and Duryodhan has a bad relationship with Nakula. And there's something called modus, right? And Duryodhan doesn't want to talk about modus, and it says at bottom 191, modus, the source of Duryodhan's doubt and self-loathing for the past 1,700 years, 500,000 dead men, women, and children after Duryodhan scourged the city and burned her glittering, fluid-soaked palaces to ash. There were some who lived at the time who said that Modus deserved to burn. That was a cancer upon the living earth, but Duryodhan doubts. He doubts if he did the right thing. And it goes on for a bit, and I don't know. It just feels like a lot to put kind of in his story. And Lord Atman manipulates stuff a bit on page 203. He makes this one soldier think of his father, so he's like kind to these one prisoners of war, and he makes sure that Duryodhan sees it. And it says, an act that I had orchestrated for the benefit of both the dying officers and for my own faltering servants. I don't love like divine interventions like that. I don't know. I'm a little like, I'm kind of mixed on that. But Duryodhan's able to like defeat the flies and like this dark sorcerer and all that stuff. And he's kind of like, and he's like become a like avenging angel at the end, because he like just burns the Timkut's like war camp all to the ground and like annihilates their army. So, I don't know. I felt there was maybe too much backstory here, and I don't really love the divine intervention stuff. So, but that was Death Dealers, and Diabolists. Yeah, my favorites have to be Kua, the Librarian, Man with the Evil Eye, The Vault of Gagar Veracarus, Renrex, that was pretty good. And yeah, those are the ones that I really enjoyed. Next, I'm going to be talking about The Eye of Sounnu. This is by Schuler Hernstrom. And like I said before, this is an anthology, but he is the author of all the stories in here. Our first story here is called The Gift of the Obmen, and this is actually also in Infernal Bargains and Other Stories. So I've read this before, so I kind of just skimmed this one. I didn't really love it the first time I read it. It's about this guy who's exiled from his tribe in like this post-apocalyptic world, and there's like this mushroom man. He gets like a third eye, and basically at the end, he and his love are going to create a new race of men, and it's basically history is cyclical, and it's like, it's fine. I thought it was all right. The Tragedy of Vran. This is about a warlord named Lurgan who wants to bring, he doesn't want like what stereotypical warlords want, where it's like more power. He wants like a guarantee of a good heir or something like that. He wants to bring death to the entire world. He wants to completely break the cycle of the world. Tasks some wizards with helping him accomplish this, but these wizards decide to seek out to summon a champion to battle and kill Lurgan, and they end up finding Thurn, who is a champion from legend, thousands of years ago, and it turns out he's been like tortured in this dark realm by demons. He's been kept in like this little fantasy thing where he thinks everything's super great. Turns out he's being tortured by demons, and he even has like his lover in that world. Shinixa is actually a demon chick, so he's been with her all this time when he thinks he's just been with like this human woman. So there's that. But he gets summoned. He battles Lurgan. He wins. And even like Shinixa comes in and like helps him during the battle, and they are both killed. They lie together like in death, and I thought that was okay, kind of weird, because she's still like a demon monster chick, but like she's like, I don't know, she sacrificed herself for him, so that's something, right? I guess that's true love. You can't beat that. Images of the goddess. So basically, we have these monks. They live in this monastery, and they worship this goddess. They don't allow any women near them at all. None of that. But they want this book of icons. It's this book of like images of their goddess, and they believe that it lies in this spaceship somewhere out in the. They know where it is. They know it's in this spaceship out in the world, and someone has to retrieve it. And they want it to be one of their younger monks to go out into the world and go bring it back. So we have Plum. And Plum is a young monk, and he is kind of a scumbag here. I kind of like this. This was different, where he cheats during two parts of the contest. During like a physical endurance thing, he cheats and beats up another kid. And then during like the written exam part of it, he betrays his good friend. He betrays and fucks over his good friend so that he can win and he can be chosen. So Plum is sent out into the world, and he ends up finding this nomad camp where there's this man with a powerful eye called Drur, who's a prison. He calls himself a wizard, and he says, "Get me the hell out of here, boy." So he ends up freeing Drur, but the nomads catch up to them, and they have to barter with them. So they have to promise them like some of the treasure, because they know they're going after this book, and this book is worth a lot of money. So they promise them like some amount of money, right? And they send one nomad woman to join them. I believe it's Stilma, something like that. So this nomad woman joins them, and because Plum has never really like seen a woman before, like not even like a girl, because they've lived in like this super remote monastery, he's like too afraid to look at her even, and he like looks at her through like his hands, like his fingers. But they're going along, and then they're gonna like stop in the city before they like reach the jungle where the spaceship is supposed to be, right? Because we're in like kind of a weird world where it's like, it's very like, no one's like riding around with like blasters and anything, but they talk about spaceships. They know what they are, and there are definitely like creatures and beings that they interact with that have like been out in space. So it's kind of like that world. That's what I mean, where it's like kind of older. fantasy, like space fantasy, kind of like that, where it's just like more casual. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's this weird blend of like sci-fi and fantasy. So it just felt older to me. Anyway, Plum is captured just before they reach the city, and they think that he's been sold to this arena and that he's going to be killed. So they have to come up with this elaborate escape plan to get him out. And then when they're enacting it, they find Plum, and it turns out he's actually just a candy vendor. They didn't, he is a slave, but they didn't want to put him in the arena, so he's just selling candy. So then they end up contracting a like boat crew to take them down the river to get to the jungle, right? And Plum is not very bright, because he doesn't really interact with people too much. And they end up revealing that, hey, we're going after this book. And the book crew also want this book. And while all this is going on, there's now an insect man. These guys travel. Like they talk about going to another moon. Like that's where they live. Wim Tid, he's a insect guy, and he's been contracted to get Plum back because he's a runaway slave. And there's a lot going on. There's a bunch of characters in this short story. But anyway, so they go through the jungle, and they end up finding the ship, and the ship has an AI on it, and it wants to go with them because all of the crew is dead, so it's just been trapped there all this time. And there's also like this zombified space crew that they have to fight. We have the Nomads, we have Drur, we have Steema, the Nomad woman, we have the insect bounty hunter, we have the boat crew. I think the story would have benefited from cutting a few characters, from trimming it just a bit, because I feel like, there's quite a bit going on, and I think we lose focus of some characters. But they find it. They find the book with the sacred images of the goddess and these monks. They don't allow women near them, nothing like that, because they find them corrupting. But they find it, and this is a book of icons, right? So it's a book of pictures. And this is on page 79. He flipped through the pages. Inside were dozens of incarnations of the goddess, all rendered in bright color by a technique unknown to Drur. He paused in the middle. The center unfolded, revealing a trifold leaf depicting the goddess, this time a wide-hipped brunette, lounging on satin cushions, legs spread. Their goddess, the thing they all worship, they have found a porn mag. That's what they found. That is their goddess. And, that was great. That was really funny. Loved that. While I liked it, I did like this story. I think Drur is cool because he has like this magic blue eye. I don't think I mentioned that, sorry. But he has this blue eye that can like shoot kind of laser beams, but he can't do it all the time. And the eye kind of forces him to keep his word when he promises something. But just a bunch of characters, kind of maybe too much going on. Like, do we really need like the zombie crew or like the AI? I don't know if that's necessary. When they come home and like all the factions are demanding their cut of like the book sales, Plum decides that he can't really go back to the monastery. He's seen too much of the world. And so he's off with Drur and the AI, and they're going to have adventures and all that. Overall, I liked it quite a bit. Definitely pretty funny. I don't think I've ever heard of something like that. That's good. That's fucking good. Where that's kind of interesting, right? Like, I guess if like you just found these images of like this really beautiful woman and you couldn't exactly read the text, you would think like, wow, she's like really something special. You know what I mean? Like, interesting, funny. The Space Witch. This is like a 3-page story. It's like not much. Like the dude kisses death, and I don't know. She like says that, hey, I guess I won't like take over the world, or I don't know. Like he defeats her with a kiss. Whatever. The First American. So in this world, we're kind of like in a caveman world. We have the Drith, who are lizard men, and they have technology like kind of spaceships, and they have like guns. And we have Trur, and his people are the cavemen. And TR or Tur and his people, who are the Ithra, they've been on this hunt. They like hunt dinosaurs, and by the time they get back to their people, the Drith have come in and they've killed many of their people, and they've captured some women. So he goes off to the sorcerer on a mountain who is called a American, and this is Alan. and he is trapped here in this world. I think like through like time, like there's some accident with his crew, and now he's just like kind of stuck here, right? So he's stuck here. He's an astronaut, and this guy Alan, he gives him a shotgun, and he changes Tur to survive like the northern lands, because the lands where the Drith are from are like incredibly hot, and humans can't go there because they'll just die in the heat. So he changes Tur into a like Drith human hybrid, and so then Tur is going on his travels because like his love interest, Vara, she was one of the women that was captured, and he ends up in the Drith city. And we get some more backstory about the world. Apparently there was a god who, he looks like the humans, he looks like the Ithra, but he made the Drith and the Ithra. And when he did this, he had the Ithra as higher and the Drith were like their servants, but their god went to sleep at some point. The Drith still worship the god, like the god is still there and living, and he was like this god king. And when the god went to sleep, the Drith decided to attack and kill the humans, to whenever their god wakes up, they will be the god's true heirs, and the humans will serve them, right? And this is the god king Therazum. And one of the old Drith talks about how he was a part of this army, and they would battle the other god kings on the earth. But Tur is able to rescue Vara, but they can't really be together because he's like mutating the entire time. Like, it's really cool. Like, he wakes up and then like there's skin falling off his head, and then he's like growing claws and scales, and I think it's done very well. And Vara is able to go home. Alan the spaceman, he came in like with his spaceship and he killed a bunch of the lizard guys, but Tur can't go with them. You know, he can't go with them, and he's like trapped in the wastes where like he hunts the Drith still. And while he's trapped, Alan and Vara, they go back to their people, and Alan, who's been like a hermit, he feels like he's done more harm than good in this world. He's decided to help them battle the Drith. I thought that was pretty solid. I think that was like a good amount of like, you know what I mean? Like a good amount of like world building with like this God King stuff and all that. I don't think it's like too much. I don't know. It's a hard balance, but I feel like I liked it more in the first American than in Images of the Goddess. This felt more maybe paced a little better in terms of like adding more to the story, right? Because with the Images of the Goddess, it's like here's our AI, also here's the bug guy hunting you, also here's the zombie space crew, and those kind of come fast, while this I think is paced a little better. The Law of Wolves, this is about a girl named Anatha, and she and her family, they're going into town, and she is like, they're going to the local lord, and they end up meeting this knight, and this knight wants to marry Anatha, and she's not really interested in getting married to this young knight, and she sees this theater troupe, so she decides that she's going to have a life with this theater troupe. Really stupid, but that's what she wants to do. Turns out, of course, the guy running this theater troupe is a bad dude who basically just kind of entraps women, and they're kind of his servants in a way. And this knight shows up, and then it goes bad, and this knight ends up getting killed. It's like, it's hard to feel like sympathy for Anathea. Like, I feel some, right? Because she's just kind of this naive, kind of dumb girl. But it's like, you got this guy killed, you know? Like, that's still like somewhat your responsibility. But she's lost in the woods, and she ends up getting taken in by these wolves. And she lives with them for a while. But whenever like the wolf king dies, the wolf queen just kills her. And that's the law of the wolves. I thought this was okay, but I don't know. I had a hard time kind of sympathizing with the main character. On 145, we have there aren't like really any mistakes in DMR, but I think I found one. A crowded had gathered to watch a troop of mummers. That's like it, you know, for like all the books I've read. It's like a crowded. Very, very few. Next, this is one of my favorites. This is Mortu in Kirusin in the White City. So we have some guys. This is another kind of weird one where it's like aliens used to be on Earth. They are no longer on Earth. We're kind of maybe post-apocalyptic-y. We have guys on motorcycles. Like, we have cars and vehicles and all that, but it has like kind of a post-apocalyptic. So Mortu is a warrior and Kurus is a brother of the Order of the Eternal Light, and he's actually in the body of a monkey because a sorcerer turned him into that. So even though we have like aliens and all that stuff, we also have like magic and sorcery. So it's like that kind of weird blend for these stories. And one little funny exchange on page 164, Mortu shook his head no. Were a falcon to carry you off, I can't imagine being too upset. Now Kira shook his head. I know you jest. However, his small black eyes scanned the sky above. Just good, like, little humor bits. It doesn't, like, it's not, like, overdone, but, like, they're funny when they're peppered in like this. So Laguna is a woman. She leads this caravan, and she invites them to go back to their city with, she wants them to, like, help protect them, but she invites them back to their city. And everything seems okay on the surface. They, like, live in the remains of, like, this was an alien city. So they live here, and, like, they've noticed a few, like, weird things. Like, there are no children here. We have on page 180, everyone's being really, really nice to them. But one of the guys who, like, they met out on the road, he seems to be much younger than he appeared when they first met him. He seemed like an old dude when they were out on the road, but now that they're back in the city, he seems like young. That's odd. We also have Mortu when he like takes a bath, and then like he comes out to get back in his clothes. His clothes are missing, and all he has is white robes like everyone else wears here, and like it's a weird like just culty vibe. It's just very, very odd. And they find out that obviously something's wrong beneath the surface. And what's wrong beneath the surface is that some of this alien tech, if you like sacrifice children to it, everyone else can like live eternally young. And that's how things are. That's how they've been able to stay so young. They've lived for like hundreds and hundreds of years. So Mortu and Kyros, they obviously can't put up with this and just allow things to go along. And there's this one woman, Nathia, who can't stand the city as well. So they fight, they end up killing everyone and like taking the shit out so that everyone just dies. Basically, they just all like kind of crumble into dust because they've been alive for so long, and now that's broken. I said I complimented the humor before. However, page 202, the monkey whistled, arrow to the knee. That must really hurt. I don't like that. There was this one weird game. I forget, it was something. It was on like PC, but it was like Mars War Logs or maybe something like that. I can't remember. I didn't finish it because I didn't think it was very good, but it was a weird game. They also had a arrow to the knee joke in it, and I'm like, that is bad. That is bad. Not really funny. Like, you had a good bit with the Falcon. That was funny. That was good. That was your own thing. But I hate it. I hate references to that. But they escape the city. They end up, it turns out those bandits who were attacking the caravan before were actually trying to stop them from like kidnapping more children and enslaving them in the city. So they were actually kind of the good guys. And like there's a spread of like Christianity and stuff. So like it's kind of interesting. But we end there. They're going off to try to turn Kyros back into a human. But there's like Nathia. She's like waiting for more too. So yeah, definitely room to continue this. Star God's Grave. This is about Tunkel. He's this boy wizard, and wizards in this world, they can pilot like crystal ships, and that's kind of interesting. And he ends up leaving his school because he got passed over to be like promoted, and he meets two men who are like low-ranking military guys, and they're going off for this treasure, the Star God's Grave. And when they get there, it's kind of like this siren song that leads men to their deaths. And they find this big, like, crystal ship graveyard. And they end up not being able to take the treasure with them because it, like, just corrupts people if you're too close to it and, like, turns you into a monster. So they don't got anything for all this trouble. But they set off on another adventure. And I guess, the friends you made along the way, kind of a deal. So, yeah, that was it. That is the end of this little collection. I would read more from this guy for sure. I think, yeah, there's a tendency in some of the stories to maybe bite off a little more than you can chew for the amount of pages you have. But I think, good amount of humor in them and definitely like some fun worlds. It's like this older blend like kind of sci-fi and fantasy, like where it's like they just exist next to each other and it's like not a big deal. Last we have Vran the Chaos Warped. So this is a Conan-esque kind of story. I will say it's simple. I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that in a bad way at all. But I mean like uncomplicated. Like Vran is a good man. He wants to defeat evil. His opponent, his like main bad guy, is Fode Misjak, and he is just an evil, like kind of conniving, slimy little wizard guy. He and his brother Fiad, they practice pederasty, so they just like rape kids and all that, and they just do like evil wizard shit, and they're uncomplicated. They're not like three-dimensional villains, and that's totally fine. Like, simple is good, and there's definitely just people that do evil for the sake of evil that definitely exists in the real world. So I don't think like every villain has to have the super complicated backstory, whatever. So like it's simple, kind of Conan-esque, and Vran just wants to kill this dude. Not that he has like personal beef with him. It's just, you hurt kids, fuck you, I'm gonna kill you. But Vran is a little different because he used to practice sorcery when he was younger. He was like an apprentice to a wizard, but there was like an accident with it which gave him like weird eyes, and that whenever you try to like use magic near him, something always like fucks up. It never like goes exactly how you want it to go. So Fode is able to escape by like summoning a portal, but it doesn't like go exactly how he wants it, and it's like they're transported to a world of ice, right? So it's basically like kind of Iceman, caveman stuff, and he ends up helping out, and then Vran doesn't know where Fode is. It turns out Fode got there like a while before him, maybe months, but he ends up finding and helping these cavemen and like this chief, and like he's like, hey, can you help us? There's this evil wizard and he's got these dwarves. He's doing all this bad shit. And he meets like Olo, who's like the chief's daughter, and it's kind of cliche, but like it works, right? Where it's like, here's the old chief, here's his daughter. Yeah, you're gonna bone the chief's daughter, and the chief's gonna be like, you will now lead the clan, kind of a deal. He also gets like a pet salamander thing that can spit fire. It's kind of cool, so he has like that as a little companion. But Fode also like has a demon that he worships, or not really worships. He has a demon that he like bargains with, and he like sacrifices maidens to in exchange for like information and power. So this gives him a way to like freeze Vran, so like just hold him in place so that when they do have a confrontation, he's able to do that, so Vran can't do anything right away, and he like takes Olo away. They battle later on, and Fode ends up pissing off his demon because he ends up sacrificing Olo, but she and Vran have already had sex, so she's not a maiden. So the demon flips out, and Fode is a slimy little dude, so he like summons another portal to get the hell out of there, and Vran is taken with him, and then they're in a new world. So Vran is just chasing after Fode through a few different worlds. And now in this world, we're in this like huge manor castle thing. It's like insane, but like there's no one there. But it seems like people live there. And then he ends up running into like some cannibal people. And these cannibal people, there's like two different factions, and they're fighting each other. And they were promised a great reward if they would bring a man with green eyes. And that's Vran, right? So Fode is here as well. But there's another group here, and these are the stone men, and these are just living statues. This is like kind of a trope where it's like, here's your alien race or whatever. We have a bunch of men, but we have like the one chick, right? And the one chick, of course, she's not ugly, right? So we have a stone woman, and this is Grinvet, and she's like really beautiful. She's like really like kind of into Vran, even though she's like a stone lady. So I don't know how that would work. We'll get into that in a little bit. I don't know how that would work. But Fode is here as well, of course. And Fode and they're going to duel each other. And Fode, like, he brought his little dwarf minion from the ice world here. Oh, on page 98, I liked this. This was cute. This was nice. This is Grinvet. So again, she's like this stone woman. But Vran had talked about like women from his world and how they looked. And on 98, a while later, Grinvet returned, a painter's palette and a brush in hand. She had colored her formerly white hair a bright yellow and daubed blue paint over her eyes. And this is her trying to like make herself beautiful, make herself look like the women of his world. And it's just, yeah, it's cute. It's nice. I like it. But they have this duel, and like Foe just like turned this little dwarf guy into like a fucking monster. And yeah, of course he's like cheating during the duel, but Vran, he just wins through force of will, right? Because he's Vran and he's the hero. It's yeah, it's nice, it's cool. But of course, Foe, he runs again. He summons another portal again, which is fine. And in this new world, it's like a weird kind of like tribal thing. They're like in a jungle, and they have like human slaves dragging like carts with like giant plants in them, and these plants like give off pheromones that allow them to like mind control the human. Grinvet is also with Vran in this world, and they're trying to like raise the humans up to rebel against their plant rulers. I think this is called Phytopolis. And the people here, they think that Grinvet is actually like a goddess because she's like a stone woman, and that's part of like some of their mythology. But we have Vran questioning like Grinvet's infatuation with him, and talking about like she's sweet and affectionate, and she's different from, she's not like the other girls. She's not vapid or self-centered bitches. And she's like beautiful, but she's made of stone, right? How could love blossom between two such disparate forms of life, not to mention the impossibility of expressing that love in a physical manner? Vran wondered what could be done about that. What was he supposed to do? Drill a hole in her crotch? He shook his head, ashamed that such a ridiculous thought would work its way into his mind. If he doesn't like return Grinvet's feelings, would she become like a jealous, dangerous woman and like attack human women that would express an interest in him, or what? But it's interesting. I thought like, okay, she's going to be like turned into a human or something by the end of the story, but we'll get into it. So turns out, of course, Fode is here, and Fode is like working with the plant guys, and he's trying to like trying to find a way to like control the plants so that he can be master of this world. So they're seeking a way to overcome like the plant's mind control. So they go to this mountain where there's supposed to be this hermit there who's very knowledgeable, and he's supposed to help them. And the guy eventually agrees to help them, but before they can, get back to the village, they're intercepted by Fode, who like knocks Grinvet down a mountain, and he captures Vran and this guy from the village as well. So he captures them, takes them back to his dark tower, and Fode uses a tiger that the plants also control and they have around them, it's an interesting little city because it's something that the plants did not build themselves. It's not built for them, but they just live there. But Fode kills his pet salamander, which it's not like a big part of like the stories of the Vran stories, but I liked it. But he throws his pet salamander to the tiger, who eats it, and then he has his friend from the village eaten alive by the tiger. So really fucked up. Also, this is like one of the more evil like villain plans I've ever heard of, where like Fode's an evil dude, like he's a pederast, he's a pedophile, all that. But his plan on 146 is he's going to come up with a potion that will effect a reversal of the aging process. And if someone drinks enough of it, it will restore their boyhood and render that person a small child once again. And he's like, who do you think I'm going to use this on? He's like, I don't know. He's like, you, Vran, cried Miss Jack, cackling like a mad hag. So not only is it's like, I'm not even going to like kill you. I'm going to turn you into a child so that I can rape you when you're a child. It's like, Jesus fuck, man. Holy shit. But of course, Grinvet comes to the rescue. Fode is overcome. Vran tosses him out of a window, and he's eaten alive by some tigers. They end up defeating the plant rulers. Yeah, that's all nice, but he has to leave at the end. He can't really stay in this world. And Grinvet's kind of torn between going with them and staying with these people to help them because they like worship her as a goddess, and she just wants to help them. So he ends up leaving. They care about each other, but he ends up leaving. They do not have sex, and she did not turn into a human, which really surprised me. I thought she would. But after that, we have like these two short little novellas with Vran. And one of them is called The Prison Palace of the Man-Child. Good title. Great fucking title. Vran back in his home world, and he meets this guy in a bar, and they're friends, and he's going to this graveyard to like piss on this guy's grave, but he's really drunk at the time. So 172, I thought this was funny. Vran looked up and grunted confusedly. After a slight delay, he became cognizant of the danger and cried, "Get him, wretch!" He slid his basket-hilted sword from its scabbard and took one wobbly step forward, forgetting in his drunkenness to hoist his trousers. Becoming entangled, he slipped on the urine-drenched soil and fell on his face. By the time the watchman reached him, he had blacked out. And Wretch just bolts for it. And he ends up being captured and taken to this weird guy's house, Master Thwit. And he's this bizarre mix of like old and young. So he's like a man-child. This weird fusion between the two. And this master, he just keeps like interesting people like in his palace to entertain him. And it's just very odd. And there's this woman, Vaca, and this woman reminds him a lot of Grinvet, like her voice, just how she looks, everything. And he's like, is there some connection between the two? But there isn't. There isn't one. Vran stages this escape and he's going to rescue Vaca and go. But it turns out that Thwit has plotted all of this and he just, allowed him to get as far as he did in the escape because it amused him. That ends there. Vaca ends up being killed. He kills Master Thwit, and that's the end of the story. Lost in a dream, Vran is now an old man. He's an old man, he's tired, and he's dabbling in dream magic, and he's like looking for Grinvet through like all these different worlds and everything, and eventually he finds the world that they were in. But there's like some weird stuff that goes on where it's like he finds out like a lot of history of like what happened to the world after he left. Vran ends up staying too long in like the dream world, and then he's like not able to wake himself up. And then like he just sees like he's like in this void and he doesn't know what the hell's going on, and like he's like in like this blackness, and he doesn't know if he's been there for hours or centuries, but he ends up seeing a glowing form, right? He sees this glowing form, and it's the silhouette of a woman, and it's Grinvet, and they've come together like through like time and space, like they're destined to be together, and they embrace. And after they embrace, his body dies in the real world, and I like it. I think it's this happy, good ending. I will say I think I could have used a little more time with Grinvet to like build up the relation. I don't think it's bad like what's there. I think there's definitely some good like cute little moments with them. But maybe a little more time, maybe another conversation or two, something like that. But it's not bad, like where it is. And that's the end of Vran, the Chaos Warped. Anyways, so yeah, I have been through 7 books with DMR, and I've been really happy with them. I definitely want to read more. I think it's going to be a few months from now. I'll probably like read another 3 or something like that. But they have a big selection, a lot of sword and sorcery stuff, some dark fantasy, stuff I really like. Some of my favorite like indie stuff has been from these guys. Excellent. I will probably have another Trough video next weekend. Hopefully, that's the plan. I'm already like halfway through Jordan Allen's book. And I want to do a few other things like Toadstool and Arbogast. He has like 2 things, so I want to do those. Check out DMR if you're interested. Let me know if you read Black Genesis. Did you like it? Did I overhype it? I don't think I did. But check it out. And if you're interested in any of the others I mentioned, I have some videos of me talking about them. That's going to be it. Thanks for watching. White Pill Media out. That's moaning.
Jesus Christ!
I actually kind of like that, like a little murder hole that we can just pick up and put down when we're done.